Is it really a good idea to be buying altcoins right now? With so many mixed signals spreading across the crypto space, we're seeing Bitcoin dominance continuing to climb, and when it does, altcoins are underperforming. Just how much lower can the altcoins go, or are they at good entry points right now? We're seeing mixed signals coming out the White House almost daily with regards to tariffs, which are shaking the markets each time. Everyone's speculating on the Federal Reserve. Will they cut interest rates and bring back quantitative easing? And will that really affect the markets in a positive way or not? And on top of all of this, we've got market manipulation making things a whole lot more confusing. I'm going to talk about whether or not I'm personally buying altcoins on days like today. And
피터 앤서니는 암호화폐 분야에서 활동하는 인플루언서이자 콘텐츠 제작자로 유튜브 채널 더 하우스 오브 크립토의 운영자입니다. 그의 플랫폼은 전 세계적으로 빠르게 성장하는 웹3 커뮤니티 중 하나로 자리 잡았으며, 피터는 복잡한 암호화폐 기술을 쉽게 설명하고 시장 심리를 분석하며 투자 및 트렌드에 대한 통찰을 제공하는 데 중점을 두고 있습니다. 이런 그가 현재 암호화폐 시장의 혼란스러운 신호 속에서도 비트코인 상승 구조를 기반으로 한 알트코인 시장에 대해서 얘기합니다.
It's Bitcoin on the 1 hour, and I'm going to tell you something that you might not want to hear. I don't know whether this is going to go up or down by the time it reaches the end of this chart. Let me just explain something to you. The many mixed signals that you're seeing across crypto are because of this kind of stuff. On the shorter time frames, it's very damn difficult to identify what's going on. But this makes for good content, and a lot of people are showing you shorter term chart moves because it makes them have things to talk about. And you're getting bought in hook, line and sinker as to whether or not this is a descending wedge, or whether or not Bitcoin's just simply retesting this descending triangle pattern, or whether or not this is a bear flag that you're seeing right now, or whether or not Bitcoin's just perfectly bounced out of this buy zone and is in fact going to carry on towards the upside. You see how dumb this is when you try to zoom into the small time frame and speculate on what's going on? Guess what? If you stop doing this, your life is going to get a whole lot easier, okay? Because this kind of stuff is going to mess with you, and it's going to make it really difficult as the markets move on because you don't know where things are heading. I've been trading the markets for around 5 years, and before I was trading crypto, I was trading Forex for about 4 years. And guess what? A chart pattern like this can result in many different things playing out because it's not just down to the chart, there's so many other things going on. Let's just talk about some stuff here before we go and look at whether or not it's good to be getting into altcoins right now, and before we go and look at which altcoins, because there is literally very few right now that I would even consider be buying into. Now, this is the Bitcoin chart, and as you can see, since 2023, despite what you might read, Bitcoin has been in a bull market. You see that, right? It goes up in a bull market, and there's been many times where Bitcoin has gone up during this period of time. You can see like these periods here, it's been going up, and every single time it goes up, the wider crypto market goes up as well. Let me show you. This is the total 3 crypto market cap, okay? This is the altcoins minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. You can see it's been going up. It goes up. Recently, it's been starting to go up. This is the others chart, which is crypto minus the top 10. When Bitcoin and Ethereum have been going up, this tends to go up. It then pulls back. When Bitcoin goes down or sideways, it goes up again, comes back down, and then has started to go up here. But you should notice something. Typically, the end of these moves, and that was probably one move there because there was only a few weeks of sideways, it's the end of these moves where the altcoins react the strongest. Typically, we see the altcoins reacting the strongest when we move into the euphoria phase, the extreme greed phase for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is yet to get anywhere near the extreme greed phase right now because we have just not seen enough upside in terms of percentage gained, okay? Right there, you can see that Bitcoin broke previous highs and went to 97% up. Right now, you can see that Bitcoin has only just tipped around above previous all-time highs and is currently sat up 37%. Once it starts to push up towards the 120, 130, 140k, you're going to see the excitement returning to the markets. But what's stopping us getting above these prices right now? Can we get up there because of Trump and tariffs? Well, let me show you something for a moment. This price action from here down to here was all because of tariffs. We knew that tariffs were going to happen, right? Because sometime around September or October, Kamala Harris did an interview that was an absolute shocker. And when she did that, almost everyone started to speculate that Donald Trump was probably going to be the president. As soon as that happened, everyone knew that tariffs were going to come in, okay? That meant that the dollar started to climb, which meant that as the dollar climbed, we saw M2 money supply getting shrunk down. That's what then resulted in this pullback coming into play. We then saw the major tariff announcement being used by Trump, the smart money, the banks, the institutions to shake out everyone in the markets. This was the max fear event where we saw huge volatility. This one here was the Japan carry trade that then resulted in a bull market phase for Bitcoin and the altcoins, with minor pullbacks along the way that look a little bit like this, do they not? And then following on from that, the tariff stuff seems to have eased off, all until another little bite happened just the other day with regards to tariffs. But guess what? Very quickly, Donald Trump came back and said, actually, we're going to ease off on tariffs. And he has to ease off on tariffs. The US can't possibly survive without this cooperation between China because China's been buying all the US's debt. And he can't possibly not agree to tariffs because despite what President Xi says and despite what Donald Trump say, they need each other more than they let on. So despite all this kind of pushing and shoving that you're seeing in the news, really, the tariff stuff is easing off. And as it continues to ease off, we get rid of the little fear that is left to be fed upon in these markets, which is sad because it means that you're not going to have many more lows to being able to buy into during these markets. So what else is really moving the markets? Well, you know I was going to bring this up, right? This is the M2 money supply versus Bitcoin. And as you can see, this blue line has been nicely correlating to Bitcoin over times. It goes up from pretty much the start of the bull market phase here. It chops around here and doesn't really correlate through this period of time, but ultimately that was because of over bullishness because of ETFs. After that, we then correlate once more, and then you can see M2 loosely follows on the weekly this. Okay, this is on a 10-week delay. You could say on a 12-week delay that it also correlates to a point. But if we zoom out on the weekly chart, you can see pretty comfortably that this is leading crypto markets. And you're like, yeah, okay, but what does that really mean? Is money really coming in? Well, look, this is the US dollar tether market cap, okay? During periods where the M2 is kind of sloping around and going sideways, the USDT doesn't really go anywhere, okay? Then you can see big increases in M2. Then you can see USDT kind of static around this point, not really doing a huge amount. Then we see an M2 injection, and we see the USDT going up. We see a big correction in the M2, which causes the USDT to correct down with it. Slowly sort of sits going sideways. All of a sudden, M2 goes up, USDT increases. This is the M2 entering back into the crypto markets. You can see it, right? This USDT goes up and up and up until better conditions return. And when they do, the better conditions mean that the USDT money, which is now $153 billion, enters into Bitcoin. It enters into the altcoin markets. And you're like, yeah, I know, but okay, so that means Bitcoin's going up, but Bitcoin dominance continues to rise, and that means that we can't possibly see an altcoin season because institutions aren't going to buy altcoins, they just like to buy Bitcoin. I heard that before. In fact, this tweet back in 2021 said a very similar thing, and to a point it's right. But you understand that crypto is a pretty big industry right now, right? It is reflecting the way we're headed. Donald Trump is basically telling you this right now, that the US is starting to look at integrating blockchain technology into traditional finance systems. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, is heavily invested in Bitcoin, has partnered with Ondo Finance and a bunch of other big companies right now. There is obviously going to be speculation investments coming in. Those companies are going to start investing money into altcoins. Now, they might not be investing into like cat dick coin and whatever else that you might be holding, right? But there's a good chance that they start to invest more money into larger cap altcoins. We've seen it already happen back in November. XRP went up a lot. Why did it go up a lot? VCs, institutions speculating on what might go on. Not retail, okay? Retail doesn't pump hundreds of billions of dollars into the markets. All of this fear and stuff that we're seeing across this market isn't retail driving these coins. These coins are being driven by institutional investment. That's right. And it's going to continue to come into the markets. And guess what? You and me, who've been buying SUI at lows, like last year where we got in at around $1, you are also probably making a lot of money in crypto. If you've been in for a longer period of time, that institutional money will be starting to make you some gains in larger cap altcoins. And when you start to feel like you've got a bit more money in your pocket, guess what? You're going to go down the risk curve really quickly and you're going to be forced into those smaller cap altcoins. And that's why the entire altcoin market blows up. So in the very short term, what's going to happen over the next few weeks? Well, on the 12-week delay for M2 money shift, you can see the Bitcoin is going to dip down until around middle of June. Does that mean that Bitcoin and the altcoins pull back? Well, we've already seen a little bit of that happening right now. Or if we go to the 10-week, does that mean that we are now correlating to the 10-week? Because it's obviously confusing because at different times, people are talking about different things. Well, if you go on the 10-week, you would say that the dip is already over and we're ready to start pushing higher already. It doesn't really matter, okay? This is where you're getting it wrong. It doesn't effing matter, because if you're trying to make decisions for what happens over this week, then yeah, it's tricky. It's difficult. Most people don't know how to do that. And in fact, no one really knows in the very short term what's going to happen, because market makers can press the button at any time and some news can come out of the White House that you weren't expecting and you're going to get caught. So if you know that from whether or not this is delayed by 10 weeks or 12 weeks or 11 weeks or 82 days or whatever you want to call it, you can still see what the result is here, right? This is more money flowing into the markets. And guess what? Eventually, because of tariffs basically failing, because the Doge idea with Elon Musk has effectively quietly failed in the background, because the US can't really dig itself out of this hole, there is only one way, and they have to start printing money. They have to start adding more money to their balance sheet. When they do this, they're not only going to weaken the dollar around the world, which means that China, the Eurozone, Japan, and all these other countries can start printing more money and add to this M2 money supply, but also the US, banks, funds, hedge funds, you name it, whatever, are going to have to start moving out of bonds and treasuries by force, because they're going to start losing more money on their investments at that end, which means that this money is just going to continue to move into these markets. Okay, which means we're just going to get a bull market, and then we're going to see our altcoins go up. You buy when the markets are going up rather than buying when everyone's panicking and crapping themselves like they are right now, and actually being happy to sit in the red maybe a few more days should this price come down and be like, yeah, it's fine, it doesn't matter, because I believe in the longer time frame ahead. If you believe in the longer time frame ahead, then fine, it's probably a good time to enter into altcoins, isn't it? Because if you look at this chart, which is from Blockchain Center, you can see that we're in Bitcoin season, and every time we've been in Bitcoin season over the past few years, we eventually run back up towards altcoin season, because Bitcoin moves, altcoins move, Bitcoin moves, altcoins move. Okay, happens like this every time. So where to look? Well, not really here, because we know at some point this is coming down. Whether it goes a little bit up or just goes straight down from here, doesn't really matter. Okay, the result's the same. We're all going to be good. If we were to compare the Bitcoin chart versus the total 3 chart, which is the altcoins, or the others chart, you'll see that Bitcoin is much higher than these right now, because Bitcoin has already broken these highs, whereas the others is yet to break these highs from previously. This will eventually end as a sort of phase of a bull run, okay? And this will be the most outrageous altcoin season breakout that you've ever seen, once it breaks this ascending triangle pattern on the weekly. Once you see the total 3s, undervalued versus Bitcoin, you would say that it's probably a better decision to be adding more money to altcoins right now than to Bitcoin, okay? That's obviously not financial advice. Go away and do your own research. And yes, people will be like, well, you should have just been buying Bitcoin over these last few years and all that stuff. Yeah, that's probably true. But the situation is changing, because Bitcoin dominance is all the way up there, and eventually it will come back down, which means that the opportunity to make money in Bitcoin, in terms of upside versus the potential downside, is limited compared to where it is in the altcoins right now.
피터 앤서니는 지금은 알트코인 매수 진입을 고려할 만한 시점이라고 얘기합니다. M2 통화 공급 증가, 관세 완화, ETF 이후 유입된 기관 자금 등 시장의 자금 흐름이 재개되고 있음이 이를 뒷받침한다고 보고 있죠. XRP, 솔라나를 중심으로 기관 투자가 시작되었고, 이는 시간이 지나면 자금이 확산될 것이라고 전망합니다. 또한 단기 변동성에 매몰되지 말고 주간 차트 기반의 구조적 흐름을 보라고 충고하죠. 많은 투자자들이 단기 차트에 집착하고 있지만 주간 단위의 큰 흐름을 보면 비트코인은 이미 강한 상승 구조 안에 있으며 알트코인도 곧 따라갈 가능성이 높다고 말합니다. 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고, 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈겜이 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.